Reading is a beautiful place. We have national parks in 3 different directions, 2 world-class lakes. This is a sportsman's paradise, but it's also full of wonderful people. We have business leaders, community leaders, faith-based leaders, all of them working towards a singular goal, and that's to make this a great place to live. I wanted to showcase these people, give their perception of the place that they call home. This is All Reading. So I'm here with Gerald Piper. You're the athletic director and you're the head varsity football coach at Reading Christian. I'm sure you wear more hats, right?
A couple more.
So what do you coach other sports? Or?
Way back in the day when I first started, I coached some baseball, and but when we started football, I realized football takes a lot. It's a lot of energy, takes a lot of time commitment, and so I thought, let's just stick with football. And then
and that worked out pretty good.
So far, yeah, it's been nice. And then we have golf, and I needed a golf coach, and I thought, I think that's one I could handle, you know. So I gave myself the position of the head golf coach as well, although I have a couple other gentlemen helping me that are really good and a blessing to have there. So I guess technically I'm the head football coach, and the head golf coach, and then along with managing 27 other athletic teams over at the school.
Yeah, I know you're a very busy man, and I have a friend who I haven't spoken to in a long time, but he was athletic director down south, and the guy was like, just, you know, he was started as teacher, got his administrative credential, moved to athletic director, and it was like nonstop. It's all weekends.
Yeah.
It's not just school hours. You're doing all the tournaments. You're coordinating all the coaches and all the. It's a full-time plus job. So I appreciate that. I think a lot of people locally know, but probably most don't, is that your football team just went undefeated, just went down to Southern California and won the state championship.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of, we don't hear that a lot in Shasta County. There's not a lot of state champions come out of here. That's a pretty awesome tale, man.
No. Yeah. It's pretty cool. I heard a stat. I don't know how true it is, but I heard a stat that of all the football players that play in the United States, 1% of those football players have an opportunity to play in a state championship game.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
So,
maybe not even 1%. If you think about how many teams there are.
Yeah.
And only 2 per division play in a state championship per year. I mean, yeah, no, you're probably being generous and rounding up by saying 1%.
Yeah, maybe.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could be, but really didn't realize how huge that was until probably the last couple minutes of the championship game. You know, when it dawned on me, hey, I think we're gonna win this.
We watched it. It streamed. You know, we I can't remember. It was some obscure. You guys sent out the link, said, hey, if you want to watch this, and we watched. It was awesome, and there were a couple things. You guys won, I think, 16-0, right?
16-0,
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And at the beginning of the game, you know, they said like, hey, this is Reading Christian. They're from, you know, and the announcer has to pause to look up the town, you know, like Reading, California. Yeah. And
I think he called it Reading a couple times.
I think he did too. I think he did too. And you know, clearly they like, they said, hey, Reading Christian has about 120 students in the high school.
Is that what they said? 120?
I think that's what they said.
Yeah, we're actually at 150, but.
Oh wow.
You know,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, when I give the other numbers, you'll see why it was. And they said they've got 25 jersey players, and the school you're going up against has about 2,400 students.
Yeah, correct.
And they have 65 jersey players.
Sure.
And they said this is a classic David versus Goliath.
Yeah.
And then at half, when you guys were up 16-0 and pretty much controlling the game, they said, you know, I think David might actually be Goliath. You know, so it was just this small little school. It's almost like a Hoosiers movie. You know, maybe somebody in a few years will make a little movie about this tiny little school and going off and beating a Southern California team in Southern California. You guys went down and played in, I think it was like the old Cal State Fullerton. It was a beautiful stadium.
Yeah, great stadium.
Yeah.
In Irvine there. And we got down there. Well, it's funny because when we went when we made the NorCal, you know, we win sections, and that's always the goal. You know, I think for me as the coach, our first goal is always, hey, let's concentrate on our league. and let's try to win league and be league champions, and then move on to the playoffs and try to win the section. And that's kind of always been the goal, is just the section. Never really, to be honest with you, when we started the program 15 years ago, the thought of a state championship was really not part of the equation. It never really entered my mind. So section championship has always been a great thing. And then this year we won sections, and we've been in 11-man for, this was our 4th year. Prior to that, we were an 8-man. That's a whole another discussion. But an 8-man, once you won sections, that was it. There were no state playoffs. So this was our first time. Last year in 11-man, we made the playoffs for the first time, lost in the semifinals. And then this year, ended up winning league, and then fortunate enough to win the sections, and then got to play Middletown for the NorCal championship. And they were a tough team, very tough team. And I thought, man, it'd be really, really cool to beat these guys. And then I looked at the bracket and saw, well, if we win, if we're fortunate enough to beat Middletown, then we get to go to Irvine and play a team of, 24 plus. And I thought, that sounds tough.
Yeah.
And Middletown had 400 plus, students. And that was a very tough game. So honestly, going down there, my first thought was, boy, I just hope we don't get, blown out. I want to go down and represent us well. And then we started watching them on film, Woodbridge, a little bit on film. And film can be a little bit tricky when you're watching it.
Yeah.
I've watched film on some teams and thought, oh, they're just they're going to be a good team. It's going to be a tough game. And we ended up beating them handily. And then I've been on the other side watching film, going, oh, we should be able to handle these guys. And then come game time, I'm like, that's not the same team I watched on film. So film can be a little bit deceiving. So when we started watching Woodbridge, my coaching staff and I, we felt like, hey, we're gonna have a chance with these guys. And then when we went down there, I would say the first couple series, the thought of getting blown out totally went out the window. I thought, well, we're not getting blown out. We're definitely going to be in this game. And
your defense was fantastic.
Yeah, it was a great defensive game. Their defense was good. Ours played really well. And but yeah, just knowing, hey, after a couple series, we're going to have a legitimate chance to win this thing felt pretty good.
Yeah, and you did.
Yeah.
You have a great bunch of young men.
Yeah.
I mean, a really talented group of young men who, it's not just football. A lot of them play basketball, and they're having a great season this year, and they had a great season last year. I watched them play. I don't know it was at Shasta College, and it was a playoff game, but it was pretty high up. They'd won a couple playoff games, right? And they went really far.
They went to the NorCal championship game and lost to St. Bernard.
By, I think, 2 points.
Probably, yeah.
And honestly,
very close game.
I know I'm biased, but there was a couple of really bad calls at the end there. I'm sure you were at that game, and I think that one where Micah went up and shot, and he got pushed pretty hard, and I was like, how do you not call that a foul?
Right. Yeah,
like that was, I remember it. I was like, what?
Yes.
But hey, man.
And watching these kids play basketball, and a lot of the football players move on to play soccer as well, and so it's so fun for me to watch them play the next sport, and both teams, soccer and basketball this year, I think are going to go on and do some really great things. Basketball in particular, they're just phenomenal.
They are.
Just a really talented group of kids. We have a few strong seniors. And then we were blessed with a junior class, juniors this year, and they're just super, super talented, gifted athletically. But I would say more important than that, that group, along with the 5 seniors we had on our football team, really good, super good athletes, very coachable. But more important than that is these are probably some of the most high character kids that I've seen come through our school, and humble. They know they're good, but they don't act like it, and so I can't speak enough to their character and to what kind of young men they are. I just couldn't be more proud of them.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
did a little disclaimer. So we homeschooled our daughters, and when my daughters graduated high school, and it was also during, the pandemic and everything. So even though they're homeschooled, they would have been homeschooled anyway because everything was shut down. But we sat down with
That's
them.
a tough job. Congratulations, by the way.
All my wife. My wife is
yeah.
she was a school teacher for years, and she
Yeah.
now works part-time
yes.
at Reading Christian.
Yeah.
There's a cool story there where so back to my daughters, we said, hey, they said the boys need to be in school. They need to be in a high school. It's the social issues. And so last year was our first year, went to Reading Christian. We didn't really know about Reading Christian. I mean, when I grew up, there was Liberty Christian, there was like North Valley Baptist, there was Bishop Quinn, but they had all kind of you didn't hear the names anymore. And I really wasn't plugged in. I had no idea what the landscape looked like.
Sure.
And I'm trying to remember how we found out about Reading Christian. I honestly can't remember. My wife gave me credit when we were talking the other day. She goes, oh, you brought it up. And I'm like, I don't know how that could be because I don't know how I would have known. Somebody must have said something, a friend or something like that. And so she was like, okay, well, I'm going to go and volunteer. I'm going to work, volunteer in the classroom. And I don't know if it was you or Mr. Fry. Somebody said, wait, you're a credentialed teacher? We need a part-time PE teacher. And she was like, Joey, what do you think? And I said, I'll be honest. I was like, no, I want you at home because our home, like you run the home. This is your domain. This isn't my domain. If I run it, we're going to eat corn dogs every night and there's going to be no toilet paper in the bathroom. Like I just logistically, I have a day job and it'll fall apart.
Yeah.
I remember TV dinner. We'd be eating Salisbury steak TV dinners every night if it were up to me. And she's like, oh, I can pull this off. And it's been a blessing. She was blown away by the culture at Reading Christian. She was blown away by, from her past experiences working in a different school district, and she just has friends and family, and some of the stories that come out of that. And I always find it's very similar with educators and with law enforcement, who I have friends in both. Both of them will tell you that there are problems and issues that they'd like to see addressed, and as soon as you say, "Hey, I'd like to see it," they circle the wagons, and they're like, "You have no clue what I'm going through." Like, I'm not attacking you. You said the system had flaws. I agreed with you. And now it's it tightens in, they call it the thin blue line, or it tightens in. But if you get one-on-one with them, they'll tell you the things that they don't like. And when my wife went to Reading Christian, there was almost none of that, if none of that, meaning there just wasn't, it was, hey, we're here for the kids.
Yeah. This
isn't just about tenure. I don't think there is any tenure. There's, these mechanisms that are put in place that kind of pit against the kids. They, on paper, they're not meant to be pit against the kids. But when the kids' education, safety, and security isn't the number one priority, when there's other priorities, there's competing commitments, this has to go down, right? You have a finite amount of resources and energy. And so as soon as you have to stack it in this has to come down. And so when you talk to them individually, they'll say, well, I don't like this, and I don't like this, and there's nothing you can do, and I don't like this. And so when she went to Reading Christian, she's like, none of that exists. This is all about the kids. This is all about character over anything. Right. Obviously, it's a Christian school, so Christian character is what we're talking about. We're talking about being Christians and following that. But that takes precedence from what she's seen over everything else. Yeah. And then the beauty of that is those things don't get pushed aside. They actually fall underneath that. And so by this character, security and stability and safety and education naturally just fit underneath that umbrella, and it moves forward, versus in other situations, these things start to be pit against each other. And she hasn't seen any of that. And she loves it. She loves her job. She loves the people she works with. Yeah. And so that's my disclaimer. We started last year. It was a different experience. The boys been homeschooled. Now all of a sudden, the first thing I noticed was they were like, when you homeschool, you get everything done in 3 hours. You just do. The logistics of moving from class to class is like, okay, close that book, open that book.
Sure.
And they were like, I lost all my leisure time. But they love school. They love the camaraderie. They love their classmates.
Yeah.
And so there was a little hiccup in, I normally have all this time to do what I want, and we had to cut down. We were heavy into a lot of sports, a lot of individual sports, jujitsu, karate, swimming, these very, when you're not part of the system, there's not football, baseball, basketball, right? It's like that has to be, so they shifted. And so that a lot of that kind of, much to my chagrin, because those are my favorite sports, went by the wayside. And but they love the school, and we really, I can't say enough good things about Reading Christian. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted you to come on. I wanted you to talk about the football program, but I think the vast majority of people in this area were like me a couple of years ago.
Sure.
No clue what was going on. No clue that you guys existed. No clue that you guys had a campus in Palisadro, a very nice campus.
Very beautiful campus, yeah.
And you guys are getting a new campus.
Yep, we'll be moving in the fall to a new campus on Hartnell, which we've been blessed with. We will own it, which is something that's been in the works for a long time. So we're super excited about that, and a lot of cool things are in motion right now to get that facility ready. So we're excited about that. But no, Reading Christian, obviously, I think we try to be an extension of the home, and that's kind of our goal. Everything we do there is, Bible based, and I have 4 old adult kids that we're all fortunate enough to go through Reading Christian, and turned out to be great. And I guess my wife and I get a little bit of credit for that, but
sure, I'll give you some credit for that one.
But I give Reading Christian a lot of credit to how they've turned out and what kind of adults they are and people they are. So, but yeah, I've been there. I've been in Christian education for 28 years.
Oh wow!
And this is my 18th year at Reading Christian, and just the kids. I remember my first day at Reading Christian, a lot like your wife, thinking, "Wow, this is really cool. These high schoolers treat the middle schoolers so well. Middle schoolers treat the elementary kids so well. All of them treat new kids that come on campus. They just welcome them with open arms. Never seen a fight on campus. Never, just different. And I wouldn't say they're sheltered at all. I mean, they all have cell phones, and they're part of the world, but it's at least at Reading Christian, it's not, a lot of this stuff isn't totally in their face all day, and they know that they have other classmates and peers that they can lean on, and so I really like that aspect of it. But just really family atmosphere. Really,
very much so.
Yeah. And I love watching the high schoolers interact with the middle schoolers, and vice versa.
It's the opposite of bullying. It's when my youngest son first started going, he was going to play basketball, and the high schoolers were playing with him. And I'm like, what? That never, when I went to school, no way. You'd get wedgied in the gym locker by a high schooler, but they'd never be like, hey, you 6th grader, we'll take one 6th grader, you take one 6th grader. Right. And then they'd actually pass in the ball, or they would say like, come on, like this incredible mentoring program where the older kids mentor the younger kids and bring them up. And that was not part of my high school experience.
No, even as a freshman, I stayed away from the seniors.
Oh my goodness. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Right. I gave him my lunch money, and we went our separate ways, and we had a relationship. That was the way, the pecking order. No, and this isn't like, oh, Joe, you're just making that up. It's like, think about every after school movie that was ever made, us growing up. It was always trying to address the bullying or something going on, or the angst, and all the I'm trying to think of the writer that made all the Pretty in Pink and 16 Candles. All he
Yeah.
did, he was made a millionaire from writing movies about high school angst and the social awkwardness and all the problems that ensued, right? And he was making comedies about it.
Yeah.
So he was taking something that was there that was, for lack of better, we'll say had some negative vibe to it, and he was trying to make a comedy out of it. So well, there's for every one of those stories, there's a non-comedy version,
No doubt.
more of non-comedy version. And so right away, this idea that like, wait, you included these 6th and 7th graders with the 10th and 11th graders, and you brought them in and you actually passed them the ball and said, no, shoot like this. No, dribble here, set a screen. That was to me a very telltale sign of what we were about to witness. And we have the year and a half we've been there. So, I mean, that starts at the top. So if you're not a Christian, where's the top? Well, you'd think administration, and it's absolutely, but it starts above that, way above that. And I'm sure you have some kids that go there that might not be Christian, but they still flourish in this environment of like, hey, we're all going to treat each other with kindness and respect.
Yes.
And my wife has told me some stories about, there have been some issues. Kids are kids.
For sure.
Especially little boys, testosterone and what have you. And the administration saying, hey, this isn't Christ-like. That's not how we treat each other.
Right.
We treat each other with respect and kindness. And it's just a completely different approach from just the pure disciplinarian, which there is discipline there. Make no mistake.
Yeah.
Things are addressed. They're addressed very, very quickly. Before they escalate, which I think, and I know some people are going to hear this and they're going to back to what I was saying about the attack on the school district. And that's not my goal.
Sure.
There's a weird thing. I had Josh Barker on here a week ago, and I think we spoke on camera. I can't remember, but there's something about the human psychology of, like I said, if you meet teachers or you meet police officers and they'll say, I'm not happy with what this other officer did. I'm not happy with what's going on in the administration. But when somebody externally says something, it feels like a personal attack, and it's not. And to separate that and say, hey, I look at it like these systems are flawed. And wouldn't everybody like to see the system get fixed? Don't point out the individuals, because they're probably operating under a system that kind of forces them. It's like address the system and say, what are the things that are going on that would allow people to make these mistakes, and address it that way. And I feel like with what I've seen from Reading Christian from the outside looking in, was those things are addressed, like they're in the mandate. They're like, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to treat people. And I think that the mechanics of that, then when you approach it that way, the mechanics kind of fall in line. And it's the other thing is it's a great litmus test, because if somebody wants to do something, here's our mandate. Does that support the mandate, or does it conflict with the mandate in any way? And if there's any conflict, you're like, well, then that can't possibly be the right approach, right?
Right.
So, I mean, what I'm getting at is your guys' culture is very, very good.
Yeah, it is a great culture, and it does, it does start with our principals, our high school principal, Kevin Fry. He's amazing.
He is.
He's just amazing. He loves the kids, for the kids. I'd even say for the athletes. He helps so much, just helping me, making sure they're on their academics and and keeping their grades up, and then I'd probably be remiss if I didn't mention the elementary principal, whose name is Erica Piper. And she's
Any
my
relation?
wife. She's my wife. And yeah.
Yeah,
and,
you'd be real remiss if you
yeah,
didn't mention
yeah,
that, bud. That's good catch.
A lot of people go, so she's your boss, huh? And I said, well, technically, Mr. Fry is my boss. I'm the middle school and high school athletic director, but yeah, let's be real. She's the boss at home too, so
It's probably best.
I'm used to it.
It's probably best. That's kind of the same way it is with, everyone that knows me and my wife, I'm the big dude and former Marine, and I have a personality that can be a little bit out there a little bit. And my wife's, but The truth is she's running the show. I'm kind of like that big pit bull. Like when you see a lady walking and she's got a really big pit bull on a leash, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the dog's the dog's not running the show. He might be walking ahead, and he's probably the one that's going to bite you if you get out of line. But the truth is, she's the one holding the other end of the leash. She controls the food bowl. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of that's probably the way it's supposed to
By
be.
the way, she's great. I love working with her. I'm so glad that she came over to Reading Christian. And
Well, thank you.
Yeah, really enjoy working with her.
It's been an absolute blessing. So I want to get back to the boys on the team because I think you and I have talked about mildly. I'm at that age now where all my conversations kind of merge, and now I can't remember if I was just talking to myself in the mirror or if it was you.
I'm rowing in that boat.
Yeah. So they've been together. Like that's one of the other things that I think is unique is that these young men have been together since grade school, and that builds a level of communication and camaraderie and trust that you see like in professional sports when they'll do some mega deal and they'll bring superstars together and they can't seem to win, right? Like, but you should win all the championships because they can't get that communication, that trust, that camaraderie going.
Yeah.
And these guys have it at their core before they ever start playing football or basketball.
Yeah. I'm glad you kind of brought that up. I always tell my football players kind of before the season, at some point during the season, I let them know that, hey, these other schools around that are coming to play you, they know you're a private school, you're a Christian school, but ultimately they think you're a bunch of spoiled brats because you go to a private school, which we know at Reading Christian that that's not the case. There's many, many, many families who are sacrificing to send their kids to Reading Christian, but the perception is the perception, right? And so they want nothing more to come down and beat us. But I think, and just kind of going back to the culture of things, this class that you're talking about, and mainly it's my junior class right now that I have. I have 5 seniors on my football team who were all outstanding, and then they were blessed to have a group of juniors behind them who are really talented. Have been at Reading Christian. I think most of them have been at Reading Christian since elementary school. But there's always this stigma with Christian schools too that 150 kids go down and beat a team of 2,400 plus. They must recruit. They must recruit their athletes. Well, I'm here to say Reading Christian has never recruited. These kids have been together since elementary school, and every once in a while you get blessed with a really talented group of kids.
Yeah.
But I like, I see our 8th grade teams and our 7th grade teams, and I'm looking at them going, boy, they're pretty good too. If these kids would stick around, they could, because after 8th grade, some of them, they want to scatter to the maybe the foothills and the enterprises and Shastas and U preps, but I wish they would realize, boy, if they stuck around here, they could potentially do the same thing. Now, that's out of our control to some extent, but yeah, if we could retain those middle schoolers and keep them around for high school, I think a lot of them could enjoy some of the success that these current juniors and seniors are having. So yeah. But it also, I remember my varsity players. I have an office that sits above the gymnasium, so you can look down and watch basketball games and volleyball games. And I remember a lot of the boys that I have now on the football team up in my office watching the games with me periodically and just mentioning, oh, so-and-so down there is my hero, because he's a senior and these are 6th, 7th, 8th graders watching him. And that word hero just kind of struck a chord with me. And I tell the boys now, hey, there's middle schoolers looking up to you that really consider you guys as heroes,
Well, I can attest to that. My son knows both my sons know the starting lineup and everybody's stats. Yeah. And I probably shouldn't say any names because they're all, there's some legality of saying, people, they're not adults yet, but they all know their names. They know their names as well as they know LeBron James.
Yeah.
Hey, did you hear what so-and-so did last night? And he got this many rebounds. And my wife has really been, she takes the boys to all the games.
She does.
And they're super into it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're following them the way they follow pro sports and their stats. And I mean, they're really into it, and who's sick? Oh, he's got the stomach flu, so he's going to be out. I don't know what we're going to do for a point guard, but
that's so cool.
They're heroes. I mean, and what great.
And a lot of that has to go with they're watching them on the field, but they're watching them because those kids have also interacted with the high schoolers have also interacted so much with the middle schoolers that they've kind of got that relationship. Now they want to go watch them, and then they see how well they're doing, and so it's just a kind of.
And it's vice versa. My son played flag football this year, and there were multiple high school kids that would show up to these games, and they don't have any siblings on the teams. They're just there to cheer them on, and when they would come off the field, it was really awesome. I don't remember anything again, that's not the norm that I grew up with,
Right. You and me both.
Yeah. So, and it went both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that goes back to that story we were telling about them, including them. That's going to build that relationship. And I think a lot of people, I think it's always been this way, but it might be a little bit more, is that when you're a parent, you're working full time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you have a limited amount of influence over your children. You need to have really strong influence. But let's be honest. If they're going to be gone from you for 8 hours out of the day, and they're going to be around other kids, and they're going to be around whatever, and then you throw in social media or you throw in TV or whatever.
And then throw in a driver's license at 16 when they're, taking off even more.
Yeah. So this idea that, the outside world has tremendous influence over your kids. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of the cautionary tales people are like, yeah, everything was fine, and then they started hanging out with these kids, or they started going here, or in the last 10, 15 years, as they got on this social platform or something like this, and everything changed. Mm-hmm. And everything just changed. And, kids are already going through this process of growth and all the chemicals and all the biology that kicks in. We all know that, junior high to high school, I had a great buddy on years ago, Aaron Hayes, used to live here. He was a great local guy, moved off to Tennessee, but he was telling me this concept of that you have 5 chemical washes in your life, and it's 5 times in your life that your body does a lot chemically. Obviously when you're born, and then you go through puberty, and then in your early 20s, and then one of the famous ones is your 4th chemical wash, which usually hits around your 40s. And they call that the midlife crisis, right? And then the 5th one is usually older. And he was talking about how at these points, your life can go a number of different directions because there's a lot going on. Your body's developing, your brain's rewiring, certain things are happening. With the famous midlife crisis, people go one of usually 2 directions. The 5th one is older people will start to really volunteer and do a lot and they're really thinking about legacy. They're really looking back on their life and stuff. But so these kids are going through this chemical wash, right? They're already puberty and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And to have good influences versus bad influences, right. So that's another huge piece that I think we're talking about, is this incredible influence that's not just the school, but the other kids.
Yeah.
And peer pressure, I think when you say the word peer pressure, it's probably an immediate negative connotation, right? Because you think peer pressure is like, hey, do this bad thing. Hey, let's go here. Mm-hmm. Peer pressure can be very good. We're like, hey man, don't do that. That's not good for you. That's not good don't say that. That's not nice. That's not Christ-like. Right. So peer pressure can be a very good thing when it's the pressure to do the right thing.
It's positive, yeah.
And I've seen a ton of that at Reading Christian. I've seen a little bit, we went through, when our youngest went there, I remember here comes the negative thing. It has nothing to do with Reading Christian, but so my kids, because we homeschooled, have my music likes. And so I always tell a story of when my 5-year-old came in and said, Alexa, play something by Van Halen. I know people are going to give me, but anyway. And then my 7-year-old goes, I think Eddie Van Halen, Joe Satriani, Stevie Ray Vaughan, they have to be like the three greatest guitarists of all time. And at that moment, I knew I was a great father. It was that moment that I was like, that they would be saying that. So then they go off to school and they come home and all of a sudden they're singing music that I'm like, wait, where'd you hear that? And it wasn't super bad, but it was definitely more contemporary. And most of the contemporary music is, I mean, I'm in my 50s, man. I walk around, hey, turn that music down, pull your pants up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why don't you have a job? I'm like, oh, I became that guy. I became the guy that used to
Remember
say
that
to me.
expression, if it's too loud, you're too old?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I've reached that point.
So it is what it is. It's prophecy fulfilling itself. I'm becoming my dad. But they, that there was influence. So it's not, I guess what I'm trying to say is, and this is no reflection upon RCS, is that I think you said something about how they're earlier where you said they're like, I can't remember if you said they're sequestered or you said they're, you used the term basically sheltered.
Sheltered, yeah.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
These kids do have social media. They do have access to all this stuff, but they get a steady stream of like, hey, that's not the right thing. And there's also, and I don't know the exact policies, but I know that there's the tolerance level for what kids can do at school or even outside of school at Reading Christian is very, very different than the tolerance in the public sector.
Yes.
And if things aren't allowed, I mean, they don't have, well, they have not as much, right? Like, so I think it's a wonderful mix of nobody expects you to go there and immediately go into ministry. That's not even close.
No.
But they do expect you to be like a very positive influence and to, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the words. Words fail me. Worms, Roxanne, worms. Just like, hey, man, be a good person.
Be a good person. Right? It's a good foundation for them. You know, they're gonna be out in the world here soon, and you know, and life's gonna hit. And I think that if they can just look back on some of their experiences at Reading Christian and at least hold on to some of those values that they've learned, and that will help them go a long way, get through tough situations. I know for my guys, I tell them all the time, life's gonna hit. There's something around the corner. But one day, you know, your wife and your children, they're going to expect you to be the rock of the family, and they need to know that you're not going anywhere. You're there through the good times and bad times. So, but yeah, I just kind of going back to the teachers, and we have fabulous teachers who love the kids, who will work with them. They bend over backwards when they're struggling, whether it be grades or just anything. They're there for them. As coaches, I just think it's a huge blessing because, you know, I have my football players for 2.5 hours a day, which is probably more than
the parents.
A lot of their parents.
Yeah.
So for 3 months, this year, almost 4 months, yeah, we were able to hang out for 2.5 hours a day, and that's a lot of influence that myself and my coaching staff were blessed to have them, and you know, try to pour into them, you know, the best we can.
That's
so,
awesome.
Yeah.
Do you feel any pressure now? It hasn't started yet, but do you feel pressure like now that you won the championship? I think when they asked Tom Brady what was his favorite Super Bowl ring, he said the next one.
Yeah, no, I don't feel that.
Okay, no pressure.
If there's a next one, what a blessing. And you know, this, like I said, we're losing 5 really good seniors, but I have a really talented group coming next year, seniors, and I believe we'll be really good next year, and there could be a possibility that we could do some good things again next year. But you know, my focus is still just let's do what we can do. Let's try to be better people. Let's try to you know, we play a nasty, violent game, but we can play that in a Christ-like way. And I would never want to get to the point where we hate our enemy. That winning is more important. I would never get to the point where we hate our enemy so much. No, I want you to love your enemy. I want you to love the team that we're going to play. Hit them hard, help them up, but they're kids just like you. And I've coached a couple Lions All-Star games. I've had been fortunate enough to do that, and kids from other schools that we played against all year, and some of our Reading Christian kids are like, "Oh, so and so's going to be our team, on our team. I didn't like that guy, and this and that." And then they go and hang out for a week, to get ready for this Lions All-Star game, and they come out of it going, "And those guys were really cool." They're in fact, both my boys got to play in those games, and they're still friends with a handful of those boys that they played with on the Lions All-Star game. So I guess my point is, I don't. It's not to go out and hate the other team because you want to win so bad. We're going to respect our team. We're going to love the opponents. We just want to beat them if we can.
Well, I love the word you used there, because I was thinking when you said that is, I'm trying to remember the fighter, but and he was a good Christian, but he said no, they were asking him something, and the other guy's just talking enormous amounts of trash or something throughout the process, and he kind of has to mark it. You have to hype the fight. Yeah. But they asked him why he doesn't. He said, "He's not my enemy. He's just my opponent."
Sure.
He's not my enemy. He's just somebody I'm going to compete against, and I can be nice and shake his hand. Oh, I think it was Rich Franklin. So I had the honor of meeting Rich Franklin, the former UFC middleweight champion, through a friend series of events, and he's a Christian and a great guy, and he'll take your head off if you step in the octagon with him. Yeah. He'll take your head off, and that's his job. But outside of the octagon, just a wonderful guy, very compassionate, just a nice guy, and that ability to say, "But we're here to compete." You know what I mean? And nothing. We were watching some basketball the other night, and I'm not going to say the pro's name because he's on our favorite team, but my sons and I were talking about his dirty play. And I said, there's one thing, and like my youngest said, well, he's really competitive. I said, there's one thing about being competitive, and then there's dirty play. Mm-hmm. Like, I want you to compete. I want you to die for the ball. I want you to get a foul because you're trying to play defense. Yeah. I don't want you to step on somebody when they're down. I don't want you to knee them in the groin because you think the ref isn't looking. That's just dirty play. Sure. And so that I think it's a good teaching experience of like, we want you to be competitive. Right. But you don't break the rules. You don't cross the line. And they kind of have to. There has to be some things in their life so they know where that line is. Yeah. Like you can tell kids all day, just like people tell us. You get financial advice, you get health advice, right? Like we should all just be eating grilled chicken breasts and broccoli, but we're going to have the jalapeno cheddar croissant. Oh, yeah. So that the words aren't enough. Right. They have to see it in play. Mm-hmm. And when they see it in play by other kids, that's what I meant earlier about the peer pressure. Is it's one thing as kids to see adults and hopefully see them do the right thing. Mm-hmm. It's another thing to see the kids next to them and maybe a year or 2 years ahead of them and watching them do the right thing. There's a few anecdotal stories I can think of. This year there was an issue in the locker room where boys were saying something they shouldn't say. Mm-hmm. And one of the older boys came in and said, "Hey, that's not the right way to talk. Mm-hmm. Don't say things like that." Mm-hmm. Didn't bully, didn't just, and they were like, that changed everything. Yeah. Having this kid that was 3 years older say, "Hey, that is absolutely not the right thing," and not like, you know what I mean? Like the way they even addressed him wasn't this, "Hey, I'm bigger than you. I'll tell you what you can and cannot say." It was like, you're better than that. Don't talk like that. Don't act like that. You're better than that. That's an incredible positive influence that I think we'd all want, not just for our kids. I want that in my life. Yeah. I've been fortunate to work with a couple of really good people in this town that had an incredible positive impact on me, that were younger than me, but had a positive impact on my character, on my business, how I run my business. And we'd want that. I think all of us would want that our entire life. Mm-hmm. When I've been in the best shape of my life, I had really good training partners. Right. when I birds of a feather, you're the byproduct of the 5 people you hang out with the most.
Yeah.
So if you want certain things in your life, hang out with those people, become one of those people.
That's right.
And you know, if I've had to change my friend group a couple times in my life where it's just like, you know, you find yourself drifting. It's real easy in life to live through kind of a level of compulsion where you just do it and you don't even notice the drift, right? And when I was in the Marine Corps, you would set your goal, right? You'd say, hey, we're going to go to that mountain, right? And I think this is a great little metaphor for life, but you'd set your goal, your azimuth. And then you put your head down and you start marching. And at some point you stop and you reshoot your azimuth, because invariably, just like in life, when you start to go, it's not just a straight sidewalk. It's like you're going down a valley, and over here you have to go around some water, and pretty soon you're headed this way. And, oh wait, our azimuth is over there. Yeah. And you have to reset your azimuth. And so it's that same thing in life, that sometimes we just drift into compulsion, and we can go down a path that's not the best or ideal or even in alignment with what we wanted in life. And so you just have to change. You have to stop, reshoot your azimuth, and find people. You know, I love the Messiah saying that, you know, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go with a group. And so if everybody's, you know, going to Lassen and you wanted to go to Mount Shasta, well, yeah, you got to decide: are you going to Mount Lassen, or are you going to find some people that are going to Mount Shasta? Yeah, you know what I mean. And so I think all this combines, and I think what you guys did this year was fantastic. I mean, the winning is one thing, and that is, I don't know how many state champions we have in Shasta County over the last X number of years, but I don't remember hearing it too often. So that's incredible. But I think it's even more incredible the character I've seen from the kids at Reading Christian and the culture and everything that you and the administration has put together. So I wanted to have you on here to celebrate the young men and your team and everybody I know, coaches and parents and administration. Everybody had a hand. It's truly teamwork.
The community, getting us down there and just reaching out. When we made it to state, we had Raising Cane's. They got in touch with us and said, hey, we want to feed your whole team the night before you go down. So we took our whole team over there, and they fed us all. Jersey Mike sent us a box of sandwiches and things to take with us on the bus down there.
There was a huge parade.
I hate
right? There was like a huge parade in Palo Seco.
But yeah, then we had this great send off from the school. The mayor was there. We had the news. We had you know, Reading Christian is pre-K through 12th, and we had every class out there, and even alumni out there sending us off, and that was a pretty cool feeling. I think the boys really loved that. Coaches really loved that. I think it was an awesome send off, and that was kind of when I thought, wow, this is kind of a cool deal.
I didn't go send off. My wife and kids did, but I watched the video afterwards, and I'm not going to lie to you, I was really happy for you guys, and I was really nervous for you guys. I'm like, because it's just a classic, like, oh, Southern California. You know, I mean, come on, man. You know, it did feel like David versus Goliath, you know, to me. But I was so, like, when I started watching that game, and like you, like 2 or 3 series in, I'm like, wait a second. This isn't going to be 48-0 at all. No, this is a very well matched group, and you guys pulled it off. And well, I want to thank you for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. This was fun.
And you know, you guys are taking more kids. So if somebody's interested, if somebody's heard any of this and they'd like to know more about it, they can. I think is it readingchristian.com?
Readingchristian.com. They can find us. They can call the office, and they could have their child shadow, or they could just come over and get a tour of the school and kind of what we do. But yeah.
That's awesome, man. Reach out. And you also take, I've heard, I'm going to throw you on the spot here because I didn't prep you for this one, but every now and then people pay for scholarships for kids. There are kids that are going to Reading Christian to other people. So if people say, hey, look, I'd like to help out and change a kid's life, you know, even if they're like, oh, my kids are grown and stuff, you guys offer the ability for the public to say, yeah, I'd like to sponsor some kids and help them and pay for scholarships, right?
Sure.
I mean, that happens.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's an awesome thing. I hope that's a tax deduction, man. If it's not, somebody, we need to get an attorney involved, a tax attorney, because that should be some type of you
And
know?
it's not just to clarify, it's not it would not be an athletic scholarship. It's
No.
a scholarship to come help pay for their tuition and be part of the full picture of what we do there at Reading Christian.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's lots of opportunities, and if anybody's interested, stop by the office, give us a call, and we'd love to show you around and get you a little more familiar with Reading Christian.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping that you and I talk in a few weeks and you tell me that a lot of people reached out. I think it's a real
Yes.
gem, and I that's why I wanted you on here, because I think the vast majority of people just don't realize what's sitting in our backyard. And if they're like, yeah, but it's out in Palisadro, well, next year it's going to be in Reading,
it's gonna
of
be
Hartnell,
in
the old
Reading.
North Valley
Uh-huh.
Baptist, which
That's right.
Cross Point,
Yeah.
great campus. So
Yeah.
then all
And,
excuses are done.
I think people drive by that campus in a year from now, and it's going to look totally different. So
I hope so.
we're very excited to move to this campus and a lot more classrooms, a lot more space. The fields will be tremendous. When in about a year from now, like I said, people will drive by there, and it's going to look totally different. And I think it's going to be one thing, if you don't mind me saying, when I heard we were going to be moving out there, I spent my very first year, 18 years ago, we were on that campus. Reading Christian Middle School and High School were on that campus. The elementary school was at Pathway. And then 1 year later, we moved out to the Palisadro campus. We thought it was wonderful. We could bring the entire school out there, be on one campus. But there's always things with leasing and things like that. What can we do to the campus? What can't we do? And so when we found out about this, Hartnell, the Cross Point, I went out there to visit it, and I'll just be honest. One thing I heard, I felt the Lord tell me, Reading Christian's not going anywhere now. You guys own this; it's yours, and you're going to be around for a long time. So
That's awesome.
Once I heard that, I was good to go.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully I'll have you back here in a year and you'll be talking about how you guys repeated. No
Right on,
pressure.
Right on. Yeah.
No pressure.
No.
Just a little Tom Brady. Not a whole lot, but just a little
Little
bit.
bit.
The next one.
All right. Well, there should be a little pressure.
A little
but yeah,
pressure.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, Gerald.
I really
You
appreciate it.
have a great one, man.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.